We are live.
We're live. Hi, and welcome to the second Kids Club meeting. Yay! Normally Ben co-hosts these with me. Ben couldn't make today. He's super sorry, but he will be here next week for next week's Kids Club meeting. So yeah, that'll be awesome. And he'll actually do much more of this, so I'll do the heavy lifting. So we're here for Space Dumplings, the awesome Space Dumplings. Yay! Everybody liked this book, right?
That's the one,
Yeah, this is really good, wasn't it?
That's the book I
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I like. Oh, sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. And then we have the incredibly awesome Craig Thompson, who wrote and drew this book. Every single thing on these pages is all him. So that's pretty amazing, I think. And we're super excited to have you here.
Thanks for hosting me. Thank you guys for being here, being part of the club. We can do questions right away if you want.
Okay, just wondering, did you used to have a beard?
Yep, I did.
Okay, because I thought, because when I met you, I was like, that can't be him.
I used to have a beard and a beanie cap. And I didn't own that machine though. But I don't know if that's a spoiler.
Did you rent that?
I'll talk about it maybe in my coffee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So Craig's got a little talk. He'll do a little talk here, and then we'll open it up to questions and all that. So.
And do I have a little clicker or something to move through those?
Good. Yeah.
I'll point to you.
Yeah.
My apologies to you for that.
That's okay, man. That is okay.
And you guys like Q&A, we can do that at any time. So if you have questions while I'm talking, just raise your hand. We can get into it. I want to make sure we have time for that. But yeah, let's start then. Oh, I'm sorry. This might be it's gonna be a lot of clicking.
It's okay.
So
there.
First, this is Zachary. This is your first graphic novel club. How many people have this is their first time?
No.
First couple people.
First meeting or?
First meeting.
First graphic.
Yeah. So.
I mean, he's the first one. Sure.
Who's been here 2 or 3 times?
Well, there's only the second one, so.
This is brand new. That's pretty exciting. Cool.
Or for the first time.
All right, here we go.
Great.
I can also stand up there if you want me to just click that.
That's okay.
keyboards.
I gotcha. There.
Right.
Okay, there we are.
So, this is the new book, Space Dumplins, which a lot of you know. Oh, we're gonna mouse it. We can skip through some of these.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of you have already read it as many as 6 times. So this will be a little repetitive. No, you too? 6 times?
Yeah, nice.
That's pretty epic. Wow. Do you have parts memorized yet?
Kind of.
All right. Well, maybe we'll have some performance later on.
I quick read it once last night.
Like homework?
No. But I was only able to check it out yesterday. Get my copy because I had so much homework from middle school. I never checked my
Middle
email.
school.
I never
A
checked
lot
my
of
email.
homework.
Like never ever. I haven't gone to the Google Plus page in a while, and my school's noted.
That's the greatest compliment.
So
My book
I
was
had
copied
to.
from Google
So
Plus.
I had to read it because I thought I was supposed to pick it up today.
Yeah.
So I just read.
It's all good, CJ. It's all good. It's all good.
Prolific reader.
4 hours.
It's all good. All right.
All right. So some of this you guys already know. Space Dumplins, hi. Thanks for joining. Just in time. Space Dumplins takes place in space, in a galaxy in the midst of an energy crisis. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So in this galaxy, all the petroleum and the plutonium and the uranium and the stardust mines are depleted. And the last great fuel source is the excrement of planet-eating space whales. There's those space whales, which some of you already know. The whole galaxy lives in fear of these whales because they eat spaceships and asteroids and entire planets. They're kind of like Galactus. Anybody know Galactus? Yeah. We can skip ahead a little. So the whole galaxy lives in fear of these guys, though. Let's keep going. The poor people in this universe inhabit these shantytown slums in the asteroid belts, known derisively as the roids. And then the rich people, they live in these mobilized space stations. It's sort of like the Death Star combined with a gumball or maybe a pinball machine.
That's cool.
We can zoom in. The next, no, not like that.
Oh,
Next
I see.
panel, sorry.
Yeah.
So this sort of glossy water park qualities of the space station. Who would want to live there? And you would. Oh, a lot of you. All right. So this is the main character's family. They want to live there, but they don't. They live, next frame, they live in a trailer park in outer space. And like the people who aren't really rich or aren't super poor live in that sort of void between those two worlds. And they live on spaceships, they live in trailer parks, and they do all that sort of dirty manual labor that keeps the space stations functioning. So here's the star of our book, Violet. We can zoom in into her trailer and into the dinner table where she's sharing dinner with her mom and dad. Looks pretty delicious, right? No? There's her mom. Her mom is a fashion designer who works at a sweatshop garment factory in the Roids, and she dreams of, maybe bigger things. Her father is a lumberjack, and that's one of the brave souls who harvests the space whale timber to process in the interstellar sawmills. You have a question?
When I told my mom about this book, she was like, a lumberjack and a fashion designer? I'm like, but it's not what you think. And I'm like, I want you to read this book. So I'm like, it's not what you think, so I'm not going to tell you anymore.
Oh, good. Did you read it yet?
She's out of town.
Okay.
So she's going to read it once she gets back.
No, that's inspiration. I bet there's a few lumberjacks and fashion designer couples in San Francisco.
I don't know if there's any lumberjacks. I mean, maybe in Canada.
Not even in style. What about beards and flannel tattoos?
Yes.
I hear some confirmation. There might be some beards and flannel. And in the beginning of the book, Violet's school, her elementary school, is eaten by the space whales. Right? How would you feel if that happened to your school?
As long as
Robert,
as long as no one died, it'll be fine.
Sad. We have a happy and a sad. I think Violet kind of feels both things. At first, she's sad because she's worried. Is everybody okay? And then when she finds out this is the weekend and nobody was there, she's overjoyed. Woohoo!
No.
Sad and then happy. But then things get more complicated after that because her father goes missing on a dangerous mission. Zip ahead. And her mom and her are left alone in that creepy trailer park. And then her mom gets detained at the space station. And they kind of put her into this little prison of sorts. So Violet has to escape and enlist the help of her two best friends to save the day. It's kind of like Goonies. Has anybody seen that movie, Goonies? Yeah.
I've seen it. I just don't remember it.
Oh, okay. That was like one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. And in that movie, the parents are kind of ineffectual, so it's the kid's duty to save the day. So she enlists Zacchaeus. He's the last living lumpkin. He's a little scrappy orphan that lives in the Roids in a scrapyard. And Elliot the chicken. Yeah, some Elliot fans. Wow.
He's my favorite.
Really? I think it's hard to choose a favorite, but I think I relate to Elliot the most because he's really bookish and neurotic. He's pretty nerdy. He has these esoteric spiritual visions. Here he's talking about mushrooms and origami unicorns. He keeps a meticulous library of his dream journals. And they both come from totally different social classes. So Elliot is from the space station, the sort of privileged, rich elite. And Zacchaeus is just an orphan living in a cardboard box in a junkyard. So there's a lot of conflict between the two of them. And in a way, they sort of mirror the sort of energies of Violet's parents. Like her dad is more like Zacchaeus, and her mom is a little bit more like Elliot. And Violet is the only person that can help those two guys get along. Because otherwise they would never cooperate and go on a mission together. Yeah.
I must say, by the end, it's kind of like the end of Lord of the Rings.
Oh, no spoilers, though. No spoilers.
Wait,
Some people haven't reached the actual ending yet.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Nope. There are no hobbits in it, though.
No.
There is a no.
I will mention it later
Okay, good. Or you can tell me in secret. Let's skip ahead a whole bunch of these, so that we have time for questions. Because you guys have the books. I see a lot of books here. So all these pictures are in the book, but let's find some pictures that aren't in the book. If we skip ahead, you'll know. There'll be a photograph coming up. So these are all frames of the adventure. Almost there. It's easier when I just click. All right, ready?
Wait.
One more.
That's all that there is.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's a long process.
No.
Well, that's fine. You can take some questions.
Well, has everyone read to the end?
No, I know at least one person has not read to the end, but is really close. Who hasn't read to the end? There's a couple, so we can't, no spoilers on the finale.
Okay.
But we can talk about characters and stuff that lead up to the finale.
Yeah. I just really liked, this is just like, it's great. Like, and
Thank you.
there's hardly any complaints I have.
Great.
Hardly any.
Okay.
There's probably a few, but I'd have to look a little bit closer.
We'll do a
I
questionnaire.
loved the fashion
afterwards.
designs. Like, that was kind of.
Oh yeah, you're into fashion.
Yeah. I'm very into fashion.
Good. How many people are you into fashion too?
And makeup.
Oh, do you have a question?
How'd you draw that character?
Which character?
The gnome.
The gnome. Let's see. Well, I can show on some paper afterwards. We don't have like a big way to draw, do we?
I don't really. We can tack it up.
You know what? Jerome is basically a triangle, his hat, right? And his eyeballs are just big, buggy eyeballs, 2 circles. And then his face is sort of squarish, but with little tufts of mutton chops. So it's kind of like he's just a triangle, 2 circles, and a square. If you start there, I'm sure you can build the character from that. Do we have the other graphics, or it's not?
I couldn't. It's not the end of that file that you gave me, or the other one either. It's not this. It's not in here. So.
I enjoy doing these questions.
So you have a lot of.
Oh yeah,
I want to ask some questions too.
Ryan probably prepared stuff.
Yeah, a little bit. Most of them. But so there's a lot of detail in each one of these pages. I mean, there's a lot of detail in some of these pages. So how long does it take you to do a page?
I draw a page a day.
Wow.
Yeah. So most of my books, and they say if you want to have make a living in comic books, you should be able to draw a page a day. I'm sure a lot of you draw more than that, though. It's probably pretty slow, yeah. But yeah, I do. If I can get my graphics up, I'll show you my process of how I draw a page.
Okay.
But usually I pencil a page in the morning, which just means like sort of, just using a pencil. Do you guys like using pencils or do you like using a brush? Do you ever use a brush to ink? No, that's not.
And I use like shapes and pencils to shape the shapes.
Like you have like one of those templates where you can draw like circles and squares perfectly?
No, but I use my stuff for them.
Yeah? You ever trace like a coffee cup to make a nice circle? Yeah. Me too. Oh, there we go. This is it. There's the picture. This is where Space Dumplins begins.
Okay.
Who is that nerdy kid? Really? You think so?
I think this is 1980.
Yeah, that's me. That's me when I was 8 years old. And the movie Return of the Jedi just came out. Some of you know that movie.
Oh, yes.
You can see I have a Wicket t-shirt on. And even cooler, a matching Wicket belt.
Oh, that's cool.
And those are some of the drawings I was making when I was 8 years old. So there's a bunch of spaceships and space motorcycles. So basically the same thing I'm drawing now. Go to the next one. These are maybe a little later. Maybe I'm 10 years old. But Brian was asking about the detail on the pages. If you go one more. I was the same when I was a little kid. I loved drawing lots of detail. You guys like a lot of detail in your drawings?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, I loved, when I was younger, I loved Where's Waldo? Did you saw those books out? Yeah.
Those
So,
books are great.
or Sergio Aragonis, you know him? From Mad Magazine and Rue, The Wanderer. And he draws tons of little detail. in his drawings, and that was the thing that excited me the most. We could skip ahead. And again, if you guys have questions, we can do
Super
questions
guys.
instead. Yeah, these are comics I drew when I was a little kid. So I used to get this free paper from my neighbor, and it was like computer paper from the 1980s. So on one side, there's all these old 1980s printouts on the paper, and then my brother and I would draw comics in pencil on the other side. And for me, when I make a book, it always starts with the characters. The characters sort of, I heard some votes for Elliot Chicken being a favorite. Good. Yeah. Elliot has been a character I've drawn for a long time, long time, but he's never had a book to call his home. So he's always been that kind of like little lonely character. You can go to the next one. A long time ago, super long time ago, 1998, I did a pitch for a book called Crinkle Bump Dam. Not a very marketable title. But if we go ahead, here's the characters. It's a comedy adventure. The main character is a little girl named Juniper, adventurous, outgoing. We go to the next one. Then there's Elliot the chicken, who's well-dressed and neurotic and hallucinates spirits. And then there's this guy, Inflatable Clem. He's a balloon with legs and arms. And he's one of those blobby critters that I've always drawn ever since I was a little kid. Do any of you guys draw blobby critters?
Sometimes.
Just sometimes? Yeah, Anna does. It's blobby critters. Yeah, this guy, Clem, is basically Zacchaeus. It's like they all just reappeared 15 years later in a new book. And Dark Horse rejected that pitch, so that could have been my first book. We can go ahead to the next. All right, then the next component is this picture, which is that same motorcycle that's in the back of the book, the last page. 5 years ago, two of my best friends had a little daughter was born. Her name was Violet. That's her on the motorcycle. And as soon as she was born, I knew she was like the inspiration for the character of Violet in the book. And she was the hero the book needed, because Elliot, he's not very heroic. That's why we like him, I think.
Yeah.
That's why I relate to him, because he's not adventurous. Yeah.
How old is Violet supposed to be?
I never decided what age she is. What do you think?
She acts like she's older, like kind of my age, but she's really kind of like 5 or something.
You think she's 5?
And I think he's 7.
7? Yeah, that's probably pretty good. I bet. Let's hear some more guesses.
I think either 10 or 11, because I don't think a 5-year-old could drive a space bike, because like she might crash it. I don't know.
How old do you think that Charlie Brown and all of them are? What's their age? Lucy, Linus, Peppermint Patty.
A lot of them are kind of intelligent, so I think they're kind of about like
35?
Oh, yeah,
Linus is
in
35.
actual years, but not in real. But I think they're about like maybe 6 or 7.
Okay.
I don't know.
Space Dumplins is similar. Or like Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes. I think he's technically 5 years old, right? 7?
He's like 7.
All right. But it doesn't really matter.
How a 7-year-old could probably drive a space bike? I mean, they drive a record.
Well, they're not allowed to drive the space bike, but they do.
Yeah.
And this was the inspiration for the space bike. So it's a real thing. In the front, it's a Harley Chopper. In the back, it has 2 wheels. It's a VW Bug. And we can flip to the next frame. That's the inspiration for the space trike in the book.
It's so cool. Like, I just want.
Does anybody else want a space trike? Yeah. Should we try to get a toy made of that or something?
Yes. You should contact one of those custom action figure people, because they make like custom.
You have an
action. No.
All right.
I will find them on the web for you.
All right. I'll look into that. But even before there was this drawing in the book, there was like drawings in my sketchbook where I'm sort of developing those things, the spaceships. That was like my favorite thing to do with the book. Here's an example. You can see this trike in the corner there. It's really scribbly. And Violet is up in there too, and she looks like some sort of hand puppet. That was the first drawing of. Do you have a question? Why does it have antlers is a good question. Well, that machine I showed earlier, that is the Harley motorcycle, when they bought that, it had antlers on it, which seemed random. They took them off, unfortunately. I thought they were pretty cool. But they probably bought that motorcycle from somebody who was a hunter or something. And I wanted to keep that sort of odd element. And in the book, they say they do it to ward off the bad guys. I think Violet's dad, Gar, he's a bit of a kind of a hunter fisherman sort of guy, right?
I like.
He's a lumberjack sort of guy.
Yeah, right. They all do the same, right? Some questions, yeah.
It seems to be that Tinder, like Violet's dad's friend, seems like Violet's dad owns his tug, but then Tinder doesn't really own his.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I think Tinder, which is one of her dad's best friends, they're both like independent contractors. They work for like big corporations in the energy industry, but some of those guys get like a little more successful and they're able to buy their own spaceships, and then others probably still have to rent the ships from.
I think Violet's dad owns it because it's like, it looks like it came with the trailer.
I think it's, that trailer can be compatible with all kinds of different spaceships. I think the trailers are designed that way. But I think that tug is also kind of the family vehicle, because otherwise, how do they get around?
The space bike?
Well, they do have, they have a space bike, but that isn't finished until Violet finishes it with her friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there is the space whales. Is there? And then they had. And then I noticed in the ship with all the guys. There's the little eat fish, eat sleep fish, and is there like other space space sea creatures? Like,
are there other things you can go fishing for?
Like fish, like could you fish? Like space squid, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I should maybe make a separate story just about what they go fishing for. You want a sequel?
Like a
Yeah.
Right.
I could have figured something.
They become pets, the space whales?
That could be kind of cool.
Or maybe they're Galactus's pet.
You could do a crossover.
Oh,
Marvel crossover.
yeah?
You should
Rocket Raccoon.
6-issue story.
I've got another question.
Okay,
So there's an awful lot of excrement in the book.
all right.
Is poop inherently funny?
Well, I think that's a good question for the audience. The question is poop inherently funny?
Yes.
No, not. I think you don't think, a couple people did not think it is funny.
I think it's funny. Like,
But-
it can be.
I think it's funny because it's so disgusting that you just have to laugh. It's something that everybody has to do, and because of our shame, we choose to laugh at it.
Cool.
And it crosses boundaries of age and culture. Because you can go anywhere in the world, and you might not speak the language, but they will still have fart jokes. That's what I've learned.
Fart jokes are
Yeah. What about fart jokes? Do we approve of those? Or
Simpsons.
yeah.
So, what was the inspiration for the whole thing where Violet walks by that woman, like projected woman with her eyes closed, and then when she walks back,
Oh.
how does that?
Nothing specific. I think maybe it was the movie Blade Runner, where it seems like there's weird things being projected on screens sometimes, or there's weird, it's just sort of kind of weird sci-fi element. Like, oh, what if the video monitor interacts with you in some way? And that's kind of
Kind of like
disturbing.
Siri.
What was that?
Kind of like a humanoid Siri.
Yeah, exactly. Any questions there in the back? I thought I saw a hand back there. No, right?
No? Come on, you guys gotta have some questions.
I think we close it down with that poop comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. So how about what was your favorite part, guys? Super curious.
You know what your favorite part is.
I like most of it.
All right.
I
let's-
didn't really, insult you, but you could probably.
As long as it's not a spoiler.
It's not a spoiler. I didn't really like the part on the rig.
On the rig. Oh, when they were on the sawmill?
Yeah, the sawmill. I didn't really like that part because like they stole the ship. And I was like, oh. So I was like, no.
They were hiding it.
I just thought it was something that you were going to just get rid of and not bring back, and I kind of hate when artists do that. No offense.
When it disappears, it comes back.
But I'm like, oh wait, it came back. Okay, that's kind of cool. Just because I looked through it, it's like, wait, does it come back?
Because that's your favorite ship in the book. So when it disappeared that early. Oh, good.
That's
Right.
cool.
I
And then one of my favorite parts, I like the lab because the thing, it just looked cool and
Cool, thank you.
and it was interesting, and I liked the idea. So it did look like a giant lobster. It's like, huh? And I'm just like, I like lobsters.
Yeah. So there's a real density in design. I mean, we talked about lobster chef and burger chef. So how much of this are you kind of creating on the spot, and how much did you plan out ahead of time?
Well, some of the pictures I was showing there a moment ago was about how much time and how excited I got about designing spaceships. Long before I started writing the book, I spent all this time making. Can I show some of those pictures actually? All these concept designs, preliminary designs of the spaceships. You can go ahead and couple. Every book I do, there's this. I don't know about you guys when you tell stories, but sometimes I just want to design the settings or do the research. We can keep going ahead a little bit. A couple more. Oh wait, let's hold on that one for a second. This is not related, but I was creating some bad guys, and this is where they came from. I took the Ewoks. I mentioned Wicket earlier. I took the Ewoks from Star Wars, and aliens. Yes, xenomorphs, did you call them?
Yes.
And yes, the proper term, xenomorphs, and then American football, and I combined them to make the crispy croakers.
Yeah.
That's where they came from.
They have the teeth of the aliens, they have the shortness and furriness of the Ewoks, and they have the football helmets like the.
Exactly.
That's
So do you think they're more scary or more cuddly?
Cuddly.
Alright.
Look at the teeth of the aliens and how it has no eyes.
So I'd say just random people on the sidewalk.
Also, here's some early spaceship designs, and we can go to the next one too. So when I would make a spaceship, I would do like a sketch, and then design the interior of the spaceship. But these are just drawings I was making for my own reference, and then figure out how the figures, the proportions of the people inside of the spaceships,
Oh yeah.
and then design the outside.
Who's that guy with the beard? Is he the original guy?
Yeah, that's Gar. It's hard. Oh, and then you see there's the bunion, the exoskeleton. That's the bigger thing. So if you look down in their corner, it's pretty hard to see from here, but you can see Gar and Violet and Zacchaeus and Elliot. Yeah.
What's the name of the town? Freedom.
Good.
And what is
Your question.
that? Go back to that. What is over there on the front of this piece?
That's the bunion. Those are the exoskeletons. That's what it looks like when it's sitting down and the hatch opens so you crawl inside. So, did anybody like the bunions? Those are the exoskeletons. You like them, but you don't like the sawmill.
I just didn't really like the tone of it.
Okay.
I don't know why. I'm not really into industrial stuff.
Oh, okay. You like more the fashion element than the just.
Fashion, yeah. Like.
Any other questions? Did you have a question too? Did you right there? No? Oh, there's a question.
You're not a kid.
No.
But you have a
Can I ask
Batman
you a
shirt.
question?
You can ask questions.
Did you color it yourself and how did you?
Oh, that's a good question. Did I color it myself and how? No, I didn't color it. A friend of mine named Dave Stewart did all the coloring. So I did all the drawing with ink on paper, using, like I said earlier, like an old-fashioned inkwell and a brush. And then I would scan those pages and give them to my friend Dave Stewart, who colors them in Photoshop on the computer. And he can color really quickly that way. It's all done on the computer.
I love the color.
Do you guys do? Oh, cool. I'll let him know. I think he did a great job.
I like the eyelids on Elliot.
What was that?
I like the eyelids on Elliot.
Yeah, because they're kind of big, heavy, sort of
Yeah.
Garfield eyes. A little bit.
Yeah.
I like the trash yard, the junkyard monster eye.
Oh,
that you-
Radcliffe.
Radcliffe, yeah,
I love Red.
that's a great character. I really like Radcliffe.
Thank you. Yeah, if I do a sequel, it'll be more Radcliffe. I promise you that.
This actually brings us to a question from the internet because this is being streamed live, so there's kids out there on the internet watching. We have questions from the internet, and if you guys have questions, don't hesitate to ask. We'll get them answered. So Justin asks, will it be a series?
I didn't write it to be a series. Like I wrote it, as you know, as a self-contained story, and so it's not to be continued at the end. But those characters are still running around in my head, so new stories are coming to me. So I'm starting to warm up to the idea of doing.
Would you guys like to have more? Yeah.
All right.
Does anybody there not want any more? That was it. They don't ever want to read any more of this. None. Okay.
There's one. There's one.
Oh, yeah.
The contrarian. And you got a question too, sir? Or did Brian use it?
Do you have some sort of kid-friendly tutorial about your process, or maybe you could talk a little bit more about it?
Yeah, I've a few more slides related to the process.
Kids do sketches, but they end up halfway there, and maybe the motivation to go see it until the final stage, like what you do.
Okay.
That'd be great for them.
All right. Yeah, we have a few more images here. But yeah, for me, when I first started making comics, I always would start something and then draw maybe 10 pages and then get bored with it and kind of toss it aside and start something new, which I think is normal. But what was really helpful for me is when I learned to just finish a story, see it all the way to the end, because that's when the magic happens, and that's when a book gets completed and it starts to have a life outside of you. Yeah, you. So Zachary's asking about the eyes on Radcliffe. He has two eyes that also have mouths and brains, and one's always angry and mean and sassy, and the other one's always friendly. I think he only has those two brains. I think the rest of Radcliffe's body is just like a slobbering junkyard dog. But he's also arachnid. Yeah.
But which is he controlled by? Which brain?
I think it goes back and forth all the time.
It's
They're always
in
constantly.
in the story where they just meet Radcliffe, like my friend is showing me here. The nice brain is apparently taken over because Buddy is letting her ride it and run around. But what happens to the mad brain?
Yeah, then when the junkyard dog has to kick into sort of defensive gear and protect the junkyard, that's probably when the angry brain takes over. So it's like a dog, like some sort of junkyard dog that maybe is an attack dog most of the time, but then it seems like a little kid and then it's really sweet. But otherwise it just wants to attack people.
I have another internet question.
Yeah.
From Matthew, the question is what is it like to draw for color rather than black and white? Because your previous books are black and white.
Yeah. That's a good question. It took me a while to figure it out actually, because I always, all my other books are black and white, and that's the form I'm most comfortable with. So when I was coloring, at a certain point I started to separate layers so that they could be, this is kind of technical, but they could be separate layers for background, for ease of coloring for both the colorists and for myself. But in fact, it ended up taking more time for me to draw because of preparing it for color. It's not easier.
Do you change how you approach the page, knowing that it's going to be filled in with color and that different things can have your eye drawn to it by what the color's like on the page?
Yeah, a little bit. And sometimes the backgrounds are more detailed because I know that color can sort of flatten out those backgrounds or make them, push back a bit. So I can put more detail into things. But you were asking about process. I could show a few more process things if those will pop up. So when I'm working on a book, I write the whole book in, we can skip ahead, like this. I write it really loosely in my sketchbooks. I just use a ballpoint pen. You can skip ahead again. Yeah, these are examples of, I call them thumbnails. So when I write a book, I don't write it just in words. I don't write out a script or a play. I draw right from the start. So these look a lot like the drawings I was making when I was little. And I write it like that first, and then I edit. I work with an editor at the publisher, and I show it to friends, and I get feedback, and I rewrite things. So sometimes I throw away 100 pages that I've roughed out before starting the final art. Yeah.
How did you come up with the whole idea of chickens revolting and Elliot's dad kind of like doing what he does?
So in this galaxy, the chickens have become sentient creatures. Originally, all the chickens in this galaxy were populated a protein planet. So they're purely a food source. And they were pumped full of so many antibiotics and hormones and different, bad things put in your meat that they became too smart. They became sentient creatures. And then they were able to rebel and take over the lab. And then Elliot's father became one of the leading researchers, scientists. But have you seen that movie, Secret of NIMH?
Yes.
Kind of like that. There, people were doing experiments on rats, and then the rats became smarter and smarter. They evolved a new intelligence from this, experiments being done on them.
Listen, we're getting lots of questions from the internet.
Oh,
So I have
This one's
from,
about process.
we're going to start with Benjamin because he asked first. Benjamin asks, what is the idea behind Bunyan?
So the idea behind Bunyan is it's exoskeleton used for lumberjacking. So it's inspired by Paul Bunyan. You guys know Paul Bunyan?
Yes.
And Dave the Big Blue Ox.
Spider-Man.
Have you ever seen like a big sculpture of those? I know a few states have them. Is there one in California?
No.
There was one in Wisconsin. I grew up in this state called Wisconsin. Anybody know where that is? And they're all about the lumberjacks there too. So they have a big statue of Paul Bunyan. And I think it was inspired by that, because you can go inside the statue. And so I just started to think like, oh, well, what if that was an exoskeleton like I don't know, Pacific Rim or something like that. Something someone could climb inside of and control. And it would keep them safe in outer space to do the lumberjack work.
And
Yeah.
also the teachers in that
Oh, yeah.
school.
So in a high security school, the teacher also needs an exoskeleton.
So that the teacher doesn't get
Yeah, it's kind of rowdy there.
I wonder.
I'm sure there's some teachers, I don't know if there's some in the room that would love to have an exoskeleton like that in the classroom.
Justin asks, do you see the scene in motion and then draw the snapshots?
Any of you guys get that question? Yeah, you did. Yeah. Do you see the scene in motion and then draw a snapshot? I don't know. That is a good question. I mean, I wanted to work for a long time in animation. So that, before I got into comics again, I wanted to do animated cartoons. But actually the reason that I got back into comics is because in cartoons it's part of a big industry where hundreds of people, sometimes thousands, work on a movie. And it requires so many people. One person does this, one person does that. The best possible scenario is you're the key frame animator in animation. That's the person that gets to do the extremes of the movement. But then somebody else fills in all the things in between. In comics you can do everything yourself. So everyone in this room can just with paper and pencil draw their own comics, and you can make up the characters and tell the stories and do the backgrounds. That's what excited me. But I still think I have a little bit of that animation programming, so when I'm thinking of movement, I do think of that key frame, like the extreme movement. But I don't know if that, I see the key frame. I see the extreme.
Makes sense to me.
And
Hopefully
then I
that makes
don't have
sense.
to draw the in-between panels either. For this comics. Yeah.
I do what Justin says. If I'm ever going to draw, I do draw. I do have the imagine of the scene as an animation because I've made my own fan fiction before, but it's all pencil comics with color pencils.
Did you have made any Space Dumplins fan fiction?
No, because I just read it yesterday. But I've made
Ziggy Stardust meets Space Dumplins?
that would be. I do have it for my YouTube channel. I do have a plan for Ziggy Stardust thing, but you should go check that out.
All
I
right.
don't know. I'll give you the link.
All right.
But enough about me.
Yeah, CJ, enough.
Enough about me. I was also going to say something about I forget his name now. Radcliffe's eyes. I've heard his name before. That's one thing.
Okay.
Also, I think it was from Captain Radcliffe. Is that something?
Maybe.
I think
Yeah.
there's like a pirate captain that I've heard. Captain Radcliffe. I don't know if someone knows that.
I don't know, but I had a friend whose dog was named Radcliffe. That's where I got the name from.
But if Radcliffe is, if his, does each eyes, do they see things differently?
I imagine they do, because one is clouded by anger.
Yeah, because like maybe he sees everyone with like a scowling face and makes them look mean and ugly, and then the other one just looks like them normally and makes them look nice. So I don't know. I always just thought that was kind of interesting.
I bet you're right. You had a question back there.
Do you relate to any of the characters' names to like people you know or heard of?
Yes, actually, there's a lot of inside jokes in the book. So the character Tinder is inspired by a cartoonist friend of mine named Jeremy Tinder. And when I designed the character, I kind of tried to make it look like he drew it. He did draw it, and he has no characters that look exactly like Tinder, but it was inspired by his drawings. Jeremy Tinder. Let's see. Do you think I have a friend who looks like Lumpy? And probably the character I relate to the most is Elliot, the chicken. Oh, and Adam Arnold is a friend of mine too. I have a friend who's a fashion designer, and so I kind of caricaturized him and made him more wacky to be the character in the book. Yeah.
Two things. So one with Tinder. How do you kind of explain the robotic arm?
So yeah, that might be part of the sequel too. Somewhere in this galaxy there was a war, and this predates everything going on in the book. But apparently, I think it was a war where maybe human settlers came into the galaxy and they kind of established this sort of system of the elite space stations, and mostly humans live on the stations. There aren't many creatures except for Elliot.
And his dad.
And I think Tinder in that war lost his arm, but he has a cool robotic arm instead.
Yeah.
And the second thing, for what was it? Was it Tinder? Oh, Grunky. How did you get this whole gluttonous, fat, guy that is practically like?
I think Flunky is inspired a little bit by the John Candy character in Spaceballs, the Mog, Marvin Mog, a little bit. I love John Candy, but I just wanted a goofy character. Drawing those guys, they were kind of like a little bit of comic relief at that moment in the book. And I knew a lot of those kind of fisherman types growing up in Wisconsin. So it's sort of spoofing those kind of guys that hang out in fishing shacks, ice fishing shacks, and a lot of characters like that. Yeah.
How'd you drew the space station?
Oh, that took a long time. But I mean, it's just a big circle, right? And then I started making little circles inside of it, and lots of slides. I think I thought a lot about water parks. Maybe like the Mall of America, the water park in there. And like, oh, going to be winding slides and tubes everywhere and pools of aquamarine water. So you can kind of freestyle it, Do you ever draw pictures like that?
Yeah.
Like crazy. Yeah, awesome.
I think Emma had a question as well.
Yeah?
How did you come up with the gnome?
How did I come up with the gnome? Jerome is actually a character I've drawn for a long time too. If we go back to some of those photos, I can show you early versions of Jerome designs. So let's go backwards. All right, a couple more here. Can you see that at all? So if you look at it, these are pictures, these are early drawings of the fishing buddies. And if you look at Jerome, it's very tiny, but he changes his look many times. And I really like the version where he has a big mustache, and he has one tooth, and he has little creepy black eyes. But I had these drawings at my house, and some kids came over, and they loved that version up in the middle where he has the big bulgy eyes. That was the one that made them laugh the most. So then I knew that was the best design because it was the most funny. But yeah, Jerome the gnome. I don't know. I just wanted there to be a gnome somewhere in this universe. Yeah.
Also related to what he said about the wars, it was there were wars in the stars along with
Yeah, where I got that from.
Yeah, and I don't know what was I gonna say.
Well, you can hold that
let someone go on. I'll remember.
Okay, deal.
And also, I just want to say we've got about 10 minutes left, so if there's any more questions that you guys on the internet want to ask, this is the time to do it. We're getting towards the end, so.
So the whole thing with Jerome and that he's a general, but he's like kind of chill, but it's so with Jerome, he kind of is. Did he? Oh wait, this is not one. So the whole gang thing was actually the war. Like no Battlestar. Yeah, I know where that came from. But how did you come up with the idea that Gar would know?
So yeah, when they were all young, Gar and Tinder and Jerome and Wumpy too, they were in a motorcycle gang or motorcycle club, maybe is the proper term. But they weren't like really big criminals or something. They didn't do any violent crime, but they were a rowdy bunch, you know? Probably a lot of like disorderly conduct and loud mufflers ripping around the galaxy.
And why was Grumpy the only one that kept his bike? I think maybe if you do make a sequel, maybe like Gar should have his bike.
Well, Grumpy ended up living with his mom his entire adult life. He lived in the garage. So I think he just had more finances than the other two because he'd saved up his money. So he didn't have to pawn off his space bike. Where like Gar had a family, so then the space bike had to go to take care of the family. And Tinder got that fancy robot arm, so he kind of had to sell the bike to pay for his arm.
Maybe in the sequel you could have it so they all find them and
They could be reunited.
Quest for the bikes.
Star. Yeah. or the story could go backwards in time, like a prequel, and you could see some of those things from the past.
yeah, that was good too.
Yeah.
Was he on like probation or something?
Yeah. So after that, Gar, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but Gar and thus his whole family are on probation because he has this so-called criminal history. But like I said, if you look at the list of his violations, they're nothing violent. It's just disorderly conduct and speeding. The space bike gang stuff.
You know, it was kind of funny. I was a daily life was in war. Was he actually in the war too?
Well, Jerome?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jerome definitely was in the war.
Why did you say daily life?
I think he has a little PTSD, so it continues to be a struggle for him, for Jerome. Yeah.
Well, you know, my dad has a lot of designing.
Yeah, is he a designer?
No, he just draws a lot of things, but there's no bump.
Does he ever make spaceship designs?
No, he just makes weird things when I know.
Well, when I was younger, I only liked making the designs, and I wasn't very good about finishing the books. But for me, later on, yeah, I was like, a book gives like the characters a home. Because when they're in my sketchbook, nobody else really sees them. So part of the point of making a book is then I can share the characters with everybody, and they can have a life on their own. Yeah.
I remember what I was going to say. So his arm, it's kind of like, I don't know if anyone's seen the Star Wars prequels, or I know there's a lot of controversy around it because a lot of people feel bad. But his arm, it's kind of like, you know how Anakin lost his arm kind of
Oh, maybe
close.
there's a connection there.
Because, like, you probably grew up watching, well, not grew up, but you were like, 7 or 8 old. I don't know. I'm kind of bad at math, but I mean, it's easy math, but I don't care. So I'm just gonna say you were an adult when you saw Attack of the Clones, and maybe you thought, oh, that arm, kind of like that, kind of like the Luke hand because he lost his hand.
Yeah, probably more so that.
In Empire Strikes Back, which is like one of the best movies ever.
Yeah, I
The
agree.
Return of the Jedi is my favorite as well, and Air High Five. Also, I really like Adam Arnold, and I just imagine him like as soon as I saw him, I'm like, he has a German accent. I'm like, he has
German
he
accent.
has to have a German accent. 'Cause
Alright.
I don't know a single like fashion person that I've ever met that doesn't have like some sort of like German accent. He doesn't have like pointy ears and slick back green hair. It's like he has to be German.
All right.
Like
Yes, that makes
I'm
sense.
like,
For the voiceover,
so
right?
if you ever do like a cartoon or an anime, make him German.
German
So
accent.
there's a couple of y'all who haven't said anything at all. I just sort of want to make sure that yeah, great, perfect. Just as I say that.
Sort of just like a question.
Yeah.
I've just been looking at the cover, and I see like in this tiny little void thing, there's someone saying help. In like
Good eye.
the group stuff.
So it's an observation.
Yeah.
You've got a really good eye, then you're going to catch a lot of things in the details. There's a lot of little things like that hidden in the book.
There's actually a lot of things hidden. There's a lot of information in this book. There's a lot. You talk about, you use words, you use. It's one of the things I really like the most about it is that you're not talking down to the audience at all. You're talking up, and I just think that's a like if you guys read this book like 5 or 10 or 20 more times, you're gonna catch all this stuff that you didn't catch, and you're gonna learn a lot about life and things that happen. Levi, do you have any comment or anything? You just gonna be quiet?
Yeah.
All right, that's cool. No, I just wanted to make sure though, because CJ has always got his hand up. Yes, CJ.
I'm gonna read this book like every single week.
Yes.
Yeah, every single week because I'm just gonna look through it. I'm gonna have my mom read it. I'm gonna have my dad read it. I'm gonna have my friends read it. I'm gonna get more copies so my friends can have it. I think, one of my friends will really like this book. I know him, so maybe I'll get him a signed copy. I don't know.
Well, maybe I can come back for Graphic Novel Club
Yeah.
after everybody has it memorized. Maybe
Like
recitals.
I'm gonna.
I'd love to see a recital. That sounds great.
I'm gonna read this so much, I'll know it, like, I don't have a good example, but just like, imagine someone who's obsessed with something, and they know, like, every single fact about it, for every reason, and only me and you are gonna get this joke.
We've got an adult question to that. An adult question.
I'm gonna shut up now.
So are you on a book tour, or is this a special comics experience one-off?
Oh, book tour started about a week and a half ago. And this is a special comics experience. And this is kind of well, don't tell anyone else, the coolest thing I've done so far.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. It's cool that we get like just a big enough group where we can have time to actually do questions and hang out with each other. It's not like being at a big school where you don't really get any of that quality time. So this is pretty cool. And you're all into comics, which is special too. So
Yep.
keep reading comics.
All right.
I'm just-
One last question from CJ. Oh wait, no, in the back, because you haven't said anything. Do it.
What was the concept for zucchinis?
Oh, zucchinis. So the do any of you guys have siblings or older brothers or older siblings?
Nope.
Older sister? Do you get along? Is she way older or?
She was in like high school, but that didn't work for her.
Well, I think the main thing about Zucchinis is it proves that Zacchaeus, who is our friend, is the runt of his species. Because he's supposed to be super, super tall like everybody else of his species. but he was a really small run. So it was a way to get a better understanding of his background and how he felt growing up in that community. Yeah.
And I was also going to say, like way earlier in the beginning of the conversation, someone had a question and about the lumpkin, and I think someone said that he was supposed to be the last, and I was going to say like his brothers. They're technically both last.
Exactly. About that.
All right. Well, so that's pretty much time. Unless there's
Good questions, guys.
Yeah.
And ladies.
good questions. You guys did great. I want to thank Craig for coming out here and talking to you all. And yeah, if you guys give us like 5 minutes to sort of set things up, Craig will be happy to sign your books. And
We go over here.
yeah, cool, awesome, cool. So thanks.